She walked into Key's building on a Tuesday morning like she still had the right to. No call. No message. No warning of any kind. Just a woman in an expensive coat stepping through the lobby doors with the particular confidence of someone who had rehearsed this moment many times and had decided that hesitation would betray her. The lobby receptionist called upstairs. Key was in his home office reviewing quarterly reports when the call came. He picked up without looking away from his screen. "Sir," the receptionist said. "There is a woman here. She says her name is Yuna. She says," a pause. The careful pause of someone choosing words. "She says she is Jum's mother." Key's pen stopped moving. The quarterly report blurred. He set the pen down with a care that had nothing to do with the pen and everything to do with the fact that if he was not careful about his hands right now they were going to do something that the quarterly report did not deserve. "Tell her to wait," he said. His voice was level. Completely level. He ended the call. He sat in his office for 45 seconds. He counted them without meaning to, the way you count things when your mind needs something small and measurable to hold on to. And then he stood up and went to find Jum. Jum was in his room. He was sitting at his desk doing homework in a deep teal-fitted shirt and tailored charcoal shorts with white ankle socks and clean tan loafers. His homework spread before him in the organized way he approached everything. His fountain pen moving across the page with the focused care of a child who took even ordinary things seriously. He looked up when Key appeared in the doorway. He read his father's face in approximately 1 second. "What happened?" Jum said. Key looked at his son. He had rehearsed nothing. He had no strategy for this moment. For the first time in as long as he could remember he was standing in a doorway with no plan. "There is someone downstairs," he said carefully. "In the lobby." Jum waited. "It is your mother," he said. The fountain pen stopped moving. Jum looked at his father for a long moment. His face did not collapse. It did not harden either. It did something more complicated and more difficult to watch. It went very still in the way that still water goes still when something has disturbed it deep below the surface where you cannot see. "Why?" Jum said. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. Another pause. Then Jum said, "Does Miss Fiona know?" "Not yet." Jum nodded slowly. He put his fountain pen down on the desk with the same deliberate care his father had used with his own pen 45 seconds ago. He straightened his homework papers. He stood up. "Okay," he said. "Just that. One word. Caring everything and showing nothing." "Jum," he said. "You do not have to come downstairs." "I know," Jum said. "I am coming anyway." Welcome to Black Silk Stories, the home of Afro-Korean stories that hit different. Subscribe, drop a comment, and do not go anywhere. This is only the beginning. Yuna was standing near the lobby window when the elevator opened. She was Korean, mid-30s, with a face that had once been softer and had sharpened with the years into something striking and a little defended. She was dressed well. A deep burgundy coat, dark trousers, heels that added height she did not need. She carried herself with the particular tension of a woman who was holding herself together through effort and calling it composure. She turned when she heard the elevator. She saw Key first. Then her eyes moved down. She saw Jum. Something moved across her face that she could not fully contain. A complicated thing. Not simple enough to be called guilt and not honest enough to be called love and not cold enough to be called nothing. It sat somewhere in the middle of all three, shifting, unresolved. Jum looked at her. He had his father's stillness in this moment. He stood beside Key with his small hands relaxed at his sides and he looked at this woman who had left when he was 2 years old and he felt, and he would not have been able to name it fully, not yet, not at 7, the strange and disorienting experience of looking at a stranger whose face contained something that pulled at him below the level of memory. "Jum," she said. Her voice was soft. Cracked slightly on his name. "Hello," Jum said. One word. Polite. Careful. Giving nothing away and taking nothing in. Key put his hand on Jum's shoulder briefly. Then he looked at Yuna. "We can talk in the sitting room," he said. His voice was not warm and was not hostile. It was the voice of a man who had learned long ago that neutrality was its own kind of power. They moved to the sitting room. Jum sat in the armchair by the window, the same instinct as always, the position with the best sightlines, and folded his hands on his lap and waited. Yuna sat across from Key on the sofa and said what she had rehearsed. She had been thinking about coming back for 2 years. She had made mistakes, she knew that. The world Key lived in had frightened her and she had run, and she understood now that running had been wrong. She was different. She had changed. She looked at Jum when she said this part. She wanted the chance to know her son. Key listened to all of it without speaking. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Why now, Yuna?" She held his gaze. "Because time is passing," she said. "And he is growing up and I am not there." "You chose not to be there," Key said. Simply. Without cruelty. Just the fact placed on the table between them. "I know," she said. "He was too," Key said. "I know," she said again. Quieter this time. Key looked at her for a long moment. Then he looked at Jum. Jum was looking at his hands. It was the first time that Jum had looked at his hands and found nothing to do with them. Key felt that more than anything else in the room. "I need to think," Key said to Yuna. "I need time." "Of course," she said. She reached into her bag and placed a card on the coffee table. "My number. In case," she stopped. Started again. "In case Jum wants to talk. Or you do." She paused. "Or in case you decide that there is no space for this. I will understand." She stood. She looked at Jum one more time. "You are so big," she said softly. The way people say things that are true but are really about something else entirely. Jum looked up at her. "I am 7, he said. "I was 2 when you left. That is 5 years. The room was very quiet. Yuna pressed her lips together, nodded once, and left. Key called Fiona that afternoon. She picked up on the second ring. "Hi," she said. And then something in the quality of his silence told her immediately. "What happened?" "Jum's mother came this morning," he said. The line was quiet for a moment. "Is Jum all right?" she asked. First. Before anything else. Jum first. Something moved in Key's chest at that. He is being Jum," he said. "Which means he is handling it in a way that looks fine and is probably not entirely fine." "And you?" she asked. "I don't know yet," he said honestly. Fiona was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "What do you need from me right now?" He thought about that. It was not a question people asked him often. People around Key generally waited to be told what they were needed for rather than offering the question openly. "I need you to not disappear," he said. "I am not asking you to fix anything or navigate anything. I just need to know you are not going to step back so far that I lose sight of you while I figure this out." "Key," she said. "Look at everything we have already been through. Do I seem like someone who disappears?" "No," he said. "Then you already have your answer," she said. A pause. "She wants to know Jum," Key said. "What does Jum want?" Fiona asked. "That," Key said quietly, "is the question I am most afraid of the answer to." Fiona came that evening. She arrived in a deep plum long-sleeved wrap dress that fell to her mid-calf, her hair down, small pearl earrings, and the particular quality of presence she carried when she had decided that a situation needed her fully and she was going to give it that. Jum was on the sofa when she arrived. He had changed into deep navy slim trousers and a pale yellow fitted shirt, because Jum dressed for the emotional weight of occasions whether anyone noticed or not, and he had a book on his lap that he was not reading. She sat beside him. Not across from him. Beside him. Close enough that their shoulders were almost touching. She did not ask him how he was feeling. She did not offer him a speech. She simply sat beside him and let the silence be what it was. After 4 minutes she knew because she counted without meaning to. Jum spoke. "She smelled like something I almost recognized," he said. "Is that strange?" "No," Fiona said. "That is not strange at all. I do not remember her," he said. "But something in me." He stopped. Looked at the unread book. "Something in me moved when I saw her. I did not want it to. But it did." "That is not a betrayal of anything," Fiona said quietly. "That is just being human, Jum." He was quiet for a moment. "I have a question," he said. "Ask it," she said. He turned and looked at her directly with those sharp eyes that saw everything. "If she comes back," he said carefully, "into our lives, properly, does that change things for you?" Fiona held his gaze. "No," she said. "You did not think about it," he said. "I did not need to," she said. What is here, Jum. What we have built together. You, me, your father. That does not unmake itself because someone else walks through a door. Jum looked at her for a long moment. Then he said, I want to go to Alara. She blinked. Now. Tomorrow, he said. Just us. The same table. He paused. I need to think, and I think better with good soup. Despite everything, despite the weight of the evening and the complicated feeling sitting in the room, Fiona smiled. 12 o'clock, she said. 11:30, Jum said. I like to be early. I know you do, she said. He turned back to his unread book. But this time his hands on it were different. Not performing reading. Just resting. Settled. She stayed until Key came to find them both, and the three of them had dinner at the kitchen table with the conversation light and careful around the edges of the thing that sat in the middle of it. And nobody pretended it was not there, but nobody let it be the only thing either. That was how they handled hard things now. Together. At the kitchen table. With food going slightly cold because nobody wanted to stop being in the room with each other. Alara was exactly as it always was. White linen. Warm light through tall windows. The quiet confidence of a room that had seen many important conversations and had learned to hold them without comment. Jum was already at the table when Fiona arrived. Of course he was. He was wearing a fitted sage green button-down shirt with small pearl buttons, slim dark trousers, and cognac leather loafers that caught the morning light from the window. His hair was perfect. His hands were folded on the table. His truffle mushroom soup was already ordered. He stood when he saw her. Fiona was wearing a deep ivory silk dress with long sleeves and a square neckline, fitted through the waist and falling in a clean line to just below the knee, with cognac-heeled shoes that happened to match Jum's loafers precisely, and which she had not planned and which Jum noticed immediately with a small expression that was not quite a smile and was better than one. She sat down. He sat down. The waiter came. She ordered the poached salmon. Sparkling water with lemon because she had learned to order what Jum ordered, and it had become their thing without either of them naming it. They ate in the comfortable silence that had been there since the very first lunch at this table. The city moved outside the window. The restaurant moved around them. And Jum ate his soup and thought whatever he was thinking, and Fiona let him think it without filling the space. Then he put his spoon down. I looked her up, he said. Fiona was still. When? Last night. After you left. He looked at the table. She has a life. In Busan. A business. She is not. She did not disappear into nothing. He paused. She just disappeared from us. Fiona said nothing. She let that sit. That is harder, Jum said quietly. In a way. If she had disappeared into nothing I could understand it differently. But she built something. She just built it somewhere else. He looked up. Without us. Yes, Fiona said. Simply. Without softening it or explaining it away. Jum appreciated that. She could see it in the way his shoulders settled slightly. I have been trying to feel angry, he said. I thought I would feel angry. In the stories I have read, the children are always angry. He looked at his soup. I am not angry. I keep thinking about my father in his dressing room before the gala. How I had to stand on my toes to reach his collar. He stopped. He has been doing everything on his own for 5 years. Everything. And he never once made me feel like a burden for being the reason he had to. Fiona pressed her hand flat on the table. That is who your father is, she said softly. I know, Jum said. And she left that. He looked out of the window. She left him and she left that, and I do not understand it, and I have decided that I do not need to understand it. He paused. I just needed to say it out loud to someone. I am glad you said it to me, Fiona said. He looked at her. You were always going to be the one I said it to, he said. You have been the one I said things to since the beginning. Something moved through Fiona quietly and completely. Jum, she said. What do you want to do about her? He was quiet for a long moment. I want to meet her once more, he said. Properly. Not in the lobby with my father watching. Just me and her. He paused. I have things to say. And I want to say them clearly so that everyone, including her, knows where we stand. Do you want me there? Fiona asked. He considered this carefully. No, he said. This one I need to do alone. He looked at her. But I need you to be somewhere I can find you after. Can you do that? I will be wherever you need me to be, she said. He nodded, picked up his spoon again. Then he said without looking up, Miss Fiona. Yes. I want my father to marry you. The restaurant was warm and bright around them. The city moved outside. The soup was getting slightly cold. Fiona sat very still. Jum. I have thought about it carefully, he said. This is not impulsive. I do not do impulsive things. He looked up. You came to the safe house when nobody asked you to. You held my hand while I was sleeping. You sat beside me last night and did not ask me how I was feeling because you understood that I did not need that question. You ordered sparkling water with lemon today because it is our thing. He paused. You are already family, Miss Fiona. I would just like it to be official. Fiona looked at this boy. This extraordinary, impossible, completely unreasonable boy. Does your father know you are saying this? She asked. Not yet, Jum said. I am telling you first. So you are prepared. He returned to his soup. He will ask. I am going to make sure of it. The meeting between Jum and Yuna happened 3 days later. He arranged it at a quiet coffee house 2 streets from the apartment, neutral ground, public enough to feel safe, private enough to feel real. He sat outside in the car with Mr. Andy and did not go in, and it cost him more than anything he had done in recent memory. Fiona waited at the apartment. She was in the kitchen in a deep coral long-sleeve dress with a cinched waist and full skirt that moved when she walked, her hair pinned up loosely, making tea she did not particularly want because her hands needed something to do. He came in through the front door and looked at her across the apartment. He is inside, he said. He told me to wait in the car. I know, she said. He told me the same thing. He crossed the kitchen and sat at the table, and Fiona put a cup of tea in front of him and sat across from him, and they waited together in the way they had learned to wait, present and quiet and not pretending it was easy. What if she says something that hurts him? He said. Not to anyone in particular. Just the question that had been sitting in him for 3 days finally finding its way out. He will handle it, Fiona said. He is 7, he said. He has always been more than 7, Fiona said gently. You know that. He looked at his tea. I know, he said. But I am his father. And knowing he can handle something does not make it easier to watch him have to. Fiona reached across the table and put her hand over his. They sat like that in the kitchen and waited. Inside the coffee house, Jum sat across from Yuna at a small round table by the window. He had dressed carefully that morning. A crisp white double-collar shirt beneath a fitted caramel blazer, dark slim trousers, and dark brown Oxford shoes, because Jum always dressed for the weight of the moment, and this moment was the heaviest he had carried in his 7 years. Yuna had arrived before him. She was nervous. He could see it in the way she held her coffee cup and in the way her eyes moved when he walked in and in the way she smiled too quickly, the way people do when they are afraid of what a silence might hold. He sat down. He ordered his sparkling water with lemon. He folded his hands on the table. And then he looked at her with those eyes, those sharp, clear, completely undeceivable eyes, and he said, I have some things I want to say. I would like to say them without being interrupted. Can you do that? Yuna blinked. Yes, she said. Thank you, Jum said. And then he began. I do not remember you, he said. I have tried. There is nothing there. You are a stranger to me, and I need you to understand that I am telling you that not to hurt you but because it is true, and I think the truth is more respectful than pretending. Yuna said nothing. Her jaw was tight. My father raised me alone for 5 years, Jum continued. He worked and he protected me, and he came to every school event, and he learned to cook things I liked, and he sat with me when I was sick, and he laughed with his whole face when something was really funny, even when there was not much to laugh about. He paused. He did all of that without making me feel like any of it was hard. And it was hard. I know it was hard. I am 7 and I know it was hard. The coffee house was quiet around them. I found someone for him, Jum said. It took planning and patience and one very good bowl of truffle mushroom soup, but I found her. And she is right. She is exactly right. And my father is happy in the way he should have always been happy, and I will not allow anything to disturb that. He looked at her steadily. Not even you. Yuna's eyes were bright. She pressed her lips together. I am not angry at you, Jum said. I decided that anger was not useful. But I need you to be honest with me about why you came back. Really honest. Not the version you rehearsed. Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Something in her face shifted, the rehearsed version falling away, the defended version following it, until what was left was just a woman sitting across from her son for the first time in 5 years with nowhere left to hide. I heard his name, she said quietly. Key's name. Growing. And I heard there was a woman. She stopped. And I told myself it was about you. That I missed you and wanted to know you. And that is true, it is true, Jum, I need you to know that part is true. She paused. But it is not the only true thing. And you deserve the whole truth. Jum looked at her. Thank you, he said. For saying that. I am sorry, she said. For leaving. For all of it. I know, Jum said. He looked at his sparkling water. I accept your apology. But I need you to understand that accepting it does not mean what was before comes back. My father has moved forward. I have moved forward. There is a woman in our lives who has earned her place in a way that cannot be undone. He looked up. You can be someone I know. Slowly. Carefully. On terms that I set and that my father agrees to. But you cannot come back and expect to find the space you left. That space is filled now. He paused. I filled it myself. Yuna looked at her son, this 7-year-old boy in his caramel blazer and his Oxford shoes with his hands folded on the table and his eyes that saw everything, and something in her finally fully understood what she had left and what it had become without her. Okay, she said. Her voice was barely above a whisper. Okay, Jum. He nodded once. Then he picked up his sparkling water and took a small sip and said, Now, tell me about Busan. I have read that the seafood there is exceptional. And just like that, with the particular grace of a child who knew that every hard conversation deserved a soft landing. He gave her something small and manageable and real to hold on to. Yuna laughed. Shakily. Wetly. But really. It is, she said. The seafood is exceptional. Good, said Jum. Tell me. He came back to the apartment 40 minutes later. He was at the kitchen table. Fiona was beside him. They both looked up when he came through the door. He stood in the entrance in his caramel blazer and his Oxford shoes and he looked at his father and he said the 2 things he had promised himself he would say. She is not coming back, he said. Not the way she was thinking. I made that clear. A pause. She understood. He looked at his son. Are you all right? Yes, Jum said. And this time it was not the strategic calm of a child managing a situation. It was something quieter and more settled than that. Something that had been closed and did not need to be reopened. He walked to the kitchen table and sat down. He looked at his father. Then he looked at Fiona in her deep coral dress with her hair pinned up and her tea going cold because she had been too focused on the door to drink it. Then he looked back at his father. Dad, he said. I have something to tell you. He waited. I had lunch with Miss Fiona at Alara 3 days ago, Jum said. At our table. I know, he said carefully. You told me. I did not tell you everything I said at that lunch, Jum said. He folded his hands on the table in the way he always folded them when he was about to say something that mattered. I told her that I want you to marry her. The kitchen was very quiet. He looked at Jum. Then at Fiona. Fiona was looking at her tea with the particular expression of a woman who had been waiting for this moment and had still not entirely prepared for it. Jum, he said carefully. I have a list, Jum said. He reached into the inside pocket of his caramel blazer and produced a small folded piece of paper and placed it on the table. Of reasons. In case you need convincing. He looked at the paper. He looked at his son. He looked at the woman across the table in her coral dress who was now pressing her hand over her mouth. I do not need convincing, he said quietly. Jum blinked. You don't. No, he said. I have known for a while. He paused. I was waiting. For what? Jum asked. He looked at his son for a long moment. For you, he said simply. I was waiting for you. Jum stared at his father. Then something happened that had happened only twice before in this entire story, the real smile. Full and warm and entirely his own. The one that transformed his face from composed to completely, openly, unreservedly alive. "Well," he said. "I am ready." He stood up from the table. He crossed to Fiona's side and she stood too, and he took both her hands and looked at her in the way he had looked at her across every room, every table, every difficult and tender moment since a 7-year-old boy had decided their story before either of them had arrived at the first page. "I am not doing this with a list," he said. "And I am not doing it at this table." He looked at her. "But I am doing it. Soon. Properly. With everything it deserves." Fiona looked at him. "I will be here," she said. "I know," he said. From the table Jum picked up his folded list and looked at it briefly. Then he put it back in his inside pocket. "I am keeping this," he said. "For the speech at the wedding." He closed his eyes. Fiona laughed. The real one, the whole face one. The one that had been surprised out of her on a flight of entrance steps what felt like a lifetime ago and had been getting easier and more frequent ever since. "Of course you are," she said. Jum smoothed the front of his caramel blazer. "Obviously," he said. And that is how it ended. Not with a grand gesture. Not with a speech or a crowd or a moment designed to be remembered. Just a kitchen table. A folded list. A coral dress. And a 7-year-old boy who had known from the very beginning exactly how this story was supposed to go. He always knew. From the truffle mushroom soup to the wedding speech he was already writing in his head. Jum always knew. And he was never wrong. This has been My Little Matchmaker, parts 1 through 4. A Black Silk Stories original. 4 parts. One story. Started by the smallest person in the room and finished exactly the way he planned it. If this series has lived in your chest the way we hoped it would, if Jum made you laugh and cry and believe in something, then you are exactly who Black Silk Stories exists for. Like every part. Share the whole series. Subscribe and stay close because we have more stories where this came from, and every single one will hit different. You found us. Do not leave. We are just getting started. Black Silk Stories, where Afro-Korean love hits different.